Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, the return of Hayes Carll. Hayes' new album is called We're Only Human. It is fantastic. I'm a big fan of Hayes Carll. I love his music. He's an incredible lyricist. If you listen to his music, the lyrics are incredible. This is the third time he's been on the pod. The first was 2013, and then I had him on again in 2016. And when I interview songwriters who have been on before, it's always an interesting topic to go back and look and see how that process has changed and what they do differently now. And it's been 9 years. And Hayes, and I think, if I recall, on one of Hayes' social media accounts, it may still be there, I think he used to say a work in progress. He's a work in progress. That was the tagline underneath. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it said. And there's always a sense with Hayes, every time we talk about what he can be doing differently than what he did before. And there's a lot of introspection here, not just with his music, but with his life. And I wrote a couple of quotes down. He said, "There were a lot of times when I knew I could have done better, could have said it better, could have gone deeper. And that really bothered me." And so there's now really he's got purpose now in being much more deliberate in the process. He said he never used to embrace the grinding, the craft part of it. He would just wait till the ideas came to him, and that was it. And if they didn't come, no big deal. But now it's much more deliberate, and he's working a lot harder to understand the process behind it. And again, it's a lot of that recognizing that, hey, I need to be more active in it and not just waiting for things to come. And he said he tries to do work more regularly. And he said, I don't turn away the knock at the door, even when it's inconvenient. What he means by that is that in the past, he would only write when it was convenient. And now he doesn't turn away the knock at the door. Never does, even when he may not be in the best place to do it. He's always accepting that muse. He also mentioned Bird by Bird, the Anne Lamott book. I always mention it, but I'm always the first person to mention it. Hayes brought it up first, and we talked about how Anne Lamott's book, Bird by Bird, has a big influence on his writing and with breaking things up into manageable pieces. And of course, we referenced the great Anne Lamott essay, Shitty First Drafts. There's a lot here. There's a lot here about writing, a lot about life, about just constant introspection and seeing what you used to do, seeing how you can change things, be a better person, be a better writer. And I think we have to do that. We've got to engage in that self-reflection of what can I do differently. So anyway, as you can tell, I love this interview. I'm a big fan of Hayes Carll. His new album is called We're Only Human. Make sure you listen to it. And here's my interview with Hayes Carll. I was going through our last, we talked in 2013 and 2016, and one of the themes of both of those interviews was how you said you were notoriously undisciplined and what you would find things to do so that you would not have to write. So that was 9 years later, Hayes. So are we, is there any more discipline involved in the process?
Yeah. That was untenable. That relationship with the work that I had. I mean, I'm still not diligent, get up every day and get to work. And there's a lot of areas in my life where I'm trying to find better systems and make things easier and more efficient. And writing is one of those. I always think of it like a test. Um, in school, I mean, you probably read Anne Lamont's Bird by Bird, and that kind of thing of I always wait till the last minute, and then I'm overwhelmed by the enormity of the task, and ultimately turn in a an inferior uh, product or test or song or whatever the thing is because I didn't do the work in advance um, to really be the best I could be. And I mean that applies to any area of life. And the last number of years, I've kind of uh, uh, tried to address that and recognize that that is incredibly depressing to me. That feeling over and over again of saying, "Well, I could have done better if I had just worked harder, but here's what I came up with," um, it was enough to get by and have a career, and I did some things that I was very proud of. I'm not embarrassed by my work, but there was a lot of times where it really ate at me, where I knew I could have done better. I could have said it better. I could have gone deeper, and and I could have had something that I could live without regret about. And it really bothered me to look back on stuff and say, man, that's just not uh, what the vision was, or it's just not as bulletproof as I would have liked it to have been. Um, so having said that, the way I've approached that is one, I try to do work more regularly. I still don't have like a specific schedule, but I do have some routines that I do, and I am much better at not turning away the knock on the door when it says you got an idea. I try and make sure I capture that idea in the moment, even if it's inconvenient. Whereas in the past, I might just say, I got enough ideas." Now I just grab them all because I have learned that anything can turn into anything. Yeah, you just have no idea. And a phrase, a line, a thought, an idea can turn into something life changing for you as an artist. So I try and capture them. And then I put a lot more time into it when I sit down to work, and I take it a lot more seriously, I think, than I did.
A couple of follow-ups. One, you mentioned Anne Lamott, and I would always assign. It's funny because I quote her in almost every interview I do because I would, when I was an English professor, I would assign shitty first drafts to my
Hmm.
students from Bird by Bird. That idea that the first draft has to be atrocious, and you got to get all that stuff out rather than saying, write one draft and make it perfect. So and it's funny because I quoted her. I had Mary Chapin Carpenter on last month, and I quoted Anne
Yeah.
Lamott, and then
Who
she
I
made.
just who I just met last week at Newport Folk Festival. We had a really nice talk with Mary. It was awesome.
Oh, nice. And
Yeah.
what of course she said, well, yes, Anne's a good friend of mine and we toured together, which at
Right.
what point okay, I'm done here. But no, what lessons did you take away? Because Bird by Bird is a great book, but what lessons for Anne Lamott when it comes to songwriting do you try to incorporate into your writing?
Well, I mean, it's that one. I mean, I'm sure there's a million more, but that's the thing that premise of, and I mean, for your listeners who may not be familiar, you could probably break it down better than I could, but uh, Anne's brother, when they're kids, has a big book report due on or a big report due on all these different kinds of birds, and he has procrastinated and waited, and now it's the night before it's due, and he's freaking out, and he asks his father, uh, "What do I do?" And his dad says, "You just go bird by bird. You just do the one thing you can at that time." And that's my summation of it. Anyway, you probably clarify better
That was good.
than that, but and that's been my takeaway. Is I can't write a record in a day. I usually can't write a song in a day at the level that I want to. I can get a lot of it done. Um, but my takeaway is that I always relied on inspiration and I took it as far as it would let me go. And then when it ran out, I was done. It was the sitting down and grinding it out, and the craft part was not something I really embraced or enjoyed. I sort of dreaded it. And I think I convinced myself that if I wasn't coming to me in some magical lightning bolt, then it wasn't worthwhile, or it was just too hard to do. And and so for me, the bird by bird idea is, I, when that inspiration comes, it's a beautiful thing. I capture it. I make sure I've got, to quote Towns, I've got my butterfly net out. But that's only half the thing, and I have to put that work in as much as I can to uh to work through that inspiration, those ideas, and turn it. You use the craft to turn it into something, and so that's a song at a time. That's a line at a time, and that's a lot of shitty first drafts, or a lot of drafts, and that's been the big change for me. Is whereas I used to, if it rhymed, okay, let's go with it. That's sort of my philosophy. Let me get rid of this thing. And now I have a really hard time letting it go, because I'm going to do 200 drafts of it. That's not all songs are like that. That's the rare one. But I guess what I'm getting at is, I will work it now until I am content with it, and I won't let it go until then. Which is the opposite of how I used to be. And to me, that's the bird by bird. That's, let me do that work every day, that I can, so that I can put it to bed and move on to the next song. And if I stack enough of those days up, enough of those songs up, then I've got work I'm proud of, and I don't have to look back and worry about pieces I left behind, because I know I put the time in.
You mentioned also, you used to wait till the last possible minute when you pretty much had no choice but to write because there was no time left. I don't know. I tend to see that as I tend to look at that differently, because I think some people do write really well under
Sure.
pressure.
Yeah.
I will create false deadlines for myself. So if my wife says we're going out at 6, I'll start writing at 5 because I have to stop, and I'll get more done in that hour than if I sat here for an hour. So
Yeah.
use that to my advantage. So was that really, what was that ever effective for you? That kind of, we talk about procrastination as a dirty word, but I don't know that it necessarily is for everyone.
Yeah. It is for me. A dirty word. It's the bane of my existence. But but yes, a false deadline or pressure absolutely helps. And it's one of the weird things about our job is, there's, most a lot of jobs, you have a deadline. You got to go to work, and you got to do this thing by this time. And as a songwriter, that's not um, as much of an issue. Um, and I do work better with pressure. I just don't work as well necessarily. So I try to marry the two things of, let me put in the time so that I am doing the best work possible, and then let me give myself a deadline so that I can get over that last hump, and I can and really wrap it up and deliver it. And if that means staying up all night to get it done, okay. Which I wouldn't do if I didn't have that deadline. That's not my MO, to just work till the dawn. So I think that's the sweet spot for me, is just get the basic daily habits and do the little things that you have a solid foundation, and then give yourself some kind of pressure to really force you to get there. So that's what I did with this record. That I just put out is, uh, I just gave myself an arbitrary deadline. I said, all right. At the time, I didn't have a manager. I didn't have a label. There's nobody telling me I had to have this thing done, but I felt like I needed to have it done. And so I got together with Gordy Quist, and I said, I want to do a record. Here's when I want to start. Here's when I want to be done by. And then that put all these forcing mechanisms in place, and goals that I had to meet. Um, uh, and that worked for me.
So is that something you'll continue to do then, because you had success with it?
I think so. I think so. I like zooming out, or zooming ahead, and saying, okay, in a year, here's where I'd like to be. I'd like to be putting out this record, or doing this project, or really be better at this, and then kind of work backwards to say, okay, well, what do I need to do to make that happen? And some of that is, here's how my daily schedule is gonna change. Here's the things I need to learn, or um, skills I need to develop, uh, and work I need to do. Um, and uh, and then give myself a some kind of deadline. And otherwise, I'll just be here adrift. Like we said, I can find a million things to do other than writing songs. Um, so I got to find a way to keep myself engaged and close to the pressure in some way of having to deliver, because it's a tough occupation for people who do procrastinate, and that you can just do it forever.
You mentioned it was not your MO to write through the night. I was never an all-nighter type of person. Were you ever like that? Could you ever write through the night?
Yeah, there've been times. I mean, it has to be something either that I'm really fired up about, or there's that deadline, and it's more the latter. There's been many a night where I know I'm in the studio the next day, and it's my last day, or it's my last take, or we've got the band coming in for that specific thing, and I want to lose a bunch of money if I don't have it. And again, like it heightens things, and it's definitely kicks in a part of me that is maybe operating at a more intense level, certainly, and maybe a better level in some ways. It's also really stressful to me, and I don't like that feeling of it's all or nothing. And so um, I don't mind a little pressure, but I like to have a lot of my basic work done leading up to it, so it's more finishing up than having to create the thing.
I want to talk about revision briefly. I interviewed last month Paul Muldoon. Paul Muldoon is this iconic Irish poet. I mean, he's if you took a poetry class in the last 40 years, he was in that class. I mean, huge poet. He's a professor at Princeton now, but he won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry. But he has a side gig. He's a songwriter too. He's got this band on the side. Anyway, he told me something really interesting, and that was that when he writes poems, because his poems rhyme, he can never write that second line until the one before it is perfect. Which I found so interesting, because that's the exact opposite of shitty first drafts. But his whole thing was, if that rhyme and those sounds aren't exactly right in that first line, that second line is not going to work. Do you ever write like that, or is it just kind of what is that process like when you're actually writing the lyrics?
Yeah, I don't think I write like that. To me, it all informs everything, informs everything. So that first line, I don't want to spend hours making it perfect, because it may not even make the final thing. Like, it's going to inform. There's that, um, kind of morning pages. Artists way. We're bringing
Yeah.
all our writers references here, but um, to me, so much of the good stuff is buried in my subconscious, or it's things that I don't even know are there until I get them out. And if I sit down from the start, from the jump, and say, I am going to write this perfect line, and then I will move on to the next perfect line. Uh, it just doesn't work for me. I don't think I would be very good at it, and I feel, to me, it's very limiting, because I need to get rid of my self doubt and my critical side, because I will never be happy with that. It's not interesting to me. I don't access the great stuff, from an intellectual perspective necessarily. To me, it's buried in this kind of mystical, magical land, where I have to open up my mind and let it all flow out. And so that, to me, is how I start, is let's just see what's there. Let me free associate. Let me just make up goofy rhymes. Let me write a cool line and then just journal around it, or write some other stuff that seems to go with it. And so I'll just throw everything at the wall, and then I'll go back and work backwards and say, okay, what is the yeah, I started with this line, but actually the line that came after it is more interesting to me. So let me focus on that, and I'll go back and rewrite a better first line and do that. And then sometimes you zoom out and you say, okay, this entire verse doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's fun, or I'm proud of that verse as on its own, but it's not serving the song. And um, so I'll throw a lot of stuff out. There's a lot of hard decisions because I get fond of certain things, but at some point I realized, like, just because it's clever or cute or I like it, some little part of it doesn't mean it's what the song needs.
If I hear you correctly, when you start, you almost know that the first stuff that's coming out isn't going to make it. So you're almost got to get through that stuff to get to the good stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally a warm up thing. And sometimes it does make it, but I go in now. I used to go in and thinking that's it. That first thought, that first pass has to be great. And if it's not, I'm embarrassed and I throw it away and I give up. Now I go into it saying, this is just fun. And if it sticks, awesome. That's a bonus. And sometimes it does stick. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. That's just the first step in a process. And I think as a songwriter, this is the area that I've evolved the most in, is recognizing there's two parts for me to the process. And the first one is the creative, uh tapping into the to um what's underneath the present and aware mental part. And so that is hitting record on my phone and just saying whatever comes out, playing guitar and not thinking about it, just free association, stream of conscious ideas. Um, and that's part of the step. And to me, that's a lot of the magic comes out there, and a lot of the ideas that I will work on. That's the first half. But then the other part where I feel like I've evolved some is now I save all that stuff, and then I go back. If I'm on a plane, I've got a couple hours. I just go through all my voice memos and I edit them and delete them and put them away in a certain thing, title them. And so that's the next step. And then when I really want to sit down and work, then I take my craft and my skills and I take this kind of nebulous idea that I feel something, I can see something where it's going, but it doesn't have the structure, it doesn't have the time put in yet to make it a song. And that's when I sit down and do the work. That, to me, that's the work part. So the first part is inspiration and fun, and that's awesome. But where I think I've grown is the ability and desire and need to then take that and apply craft to it, and work the song until um, using those skills that you develop. So it's not just, I don't want to kill it or squeeze it to death, but but I do want to figure out ways to enhance it and make sure that the effect I'm trying to achieve, and the writing the things I'm trying to express are done as well as I can do them.
When I take stuff out, my test is always, uh, am I going to even remember? Like, if I take something out that I really thought I really wanted to keep, I always call it are they going to add it back test? And that is, if I take something out, am I even going to remember what I took out a day later? Like,
Hmm.
never, when I've written pieces, like freelance pieces, and stuff gets edited for concision, never once has that stuff come out in print. And I thought, oh man, I wish they kept that sentence. And I realize
Yep.
I didn't need it if I didn't miss it.
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of trust involved. I know what you're saying, because I have so many lines, and whether I'm writing it by hand or writing it on my Word doc or whatever, there comes that point where you have to move on, especially with a doc, and I'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to delete this," and then it's gone. Um, but a lot of times I'll go back and reread my old journals, my old writing books, my old documents where I'd kept the lines. And yeah, I feel the same. I'll look at it, I go, okay, that was clever, or that was, that could have been something or whatever. But at the end of the day, yeah, I feel like I have to trust myself in real time to make the right call. And I think I do ultimately. Because otherwise I'm paralyzed because I get a lot of ideas and I want them all in there. But one thing, like even this record I just put out, like there's nothing in there where I thought I wish I had written more.
Right.
There's a couple songs that's like I really could have trimmed a verse there, or made this phrase even a little tighter. Um, and so my natural inclination has always been to as people listening to this, they'll be like, yeah, I over explain. I wanna over present. So like fear of, uh, I think I had a therapist recently tell me like you over explain because you fear being misunderstood. And I think I do that in life, but also in my art. It's like I want to make sure they know that I know what I'm doing, and I saw the joke and I went for it, or I saw the emotional gut punch and I can get it, and look at all the things I can do. And that's ultimately not conducive to the best listening experience, or the best, for the receiver of your art. And so I'm trying to have more faith in myself that I can edit and scale down to the essence of a thing, and more faith in the listener that that if I do what I need to do, that it will land with them in the way um, that it should. That I don't need to explain everything to everybody.
I love the new album. And what I was wondering about the songs, did those songs all start as songs, or did some of them start because the topics are just there's some pretty deep topics in there. Did any of them start as journal entries or more long form pieces that you whittled down?
Uh, None of them were long form pieces, but yeah, a lot of it was journals stuff. Um, just mantras or ideas. A lot of this was just sort of personal work that I was doing in my life, and that starts my routine. The last couple of years is I get up first thing, meditate, journal, and at first that was really difficult for me, like just writing. Ironically, for a person who's a professional writer, but again, I like the inspiration. I don't like sitting down, just having, I didn't like sitting down, just forcing myself to write. And so, but I would just start with mantras and breathe, breathe. It was like Homer Simpson on the blackboard. I would just write the same thing 100 times. It was just give me one page of something. And then the more I did that, I really started to enjoy the tactile part of it, and the actual pen to paper, and it became the most peaceful and sort of fulfilling part of my day. And I started getting better. It wasn't a journal. I wasn't writing about what I did. Here's what I did yesterday. It was more, okay, here's a feeling that's coming up. Here's something I'm struggling with. Here's an emotion that I don't know what to do with. Here's a resentment I have. Here's an insecurity. Here's a fear. And that became really interesting because I hadn't done that really in any sort of concrete way. I just sit around staring at my navel, worrying all the time instead of actually working through it. And so I started working through it, and that was really rewarding. And I wanted to. I started kind of coming to realizations for myself about what was working in life and what wasn't, and then I wanted to codify that, uh, and find a way to remind myself of those things so that I wasn't making the same mistakes, because I'm gonna forget. And so that's just started finding its way into my creative life, which was exciting. I'd never had that marriage before of my life, my personal work, my actual feelings and emotions, um, and my art. It had always been sort of, I was removed from it. Even when it was about stuff that was important to me, there was a sense of removal, and it was about other people. It was it was characters, and it wasn't going from my heart to the page. And that just became really interesting. And I thought, whether anybody likes this or not, I'm really enjoying it. So I'm just going to chase that down. And it really helped me. Um, it gave me boundaries around what I was doing, and it gave me a mission, which I also have never really had. Of that, this is what I'm writing about. This is what I'm doing right now. And if it doesn't fall in these parameters, then that's I can put it aside. There'll be a time for those other songs, those other ideas. But right now, this chapter of my life, this year, this is what I'm doing, and it's really important to me. So let's just lean into it.
Let me ask you a couple very specific questions because you're holding a pen. I think last time we talked, you were not much of a pen and paper person when it comes to lyrics. So,
Yeah,
are you a pen and paper person or still a uh, computer/phone person when it comes to writing lyrics?
I'm both. I mean, I like I said, I do my morning thing with the writing and the tactile, and I have these large. I can't remember. It's like a Dutch company, but these very large notebooks were just blank pages, um, almost like artist sketch pads. But they have uh, table of like you can write. Was it a table of contents? And in the beginning, you can write on page 3. I'm writing the song "High" or whatever. Um, so I can keep track of all my songs, and I really, again, like the tactile part of it these days. And there's something that opens up a part of my brain that I really enjoy and I think is helpful. Um, but then I marry it with the tech side, and so I've got an iPad. A really cool thing that, or a thing that served me really well is you can do the split screen thing now. So I've got my voice memos, put them on one side, and I just go to my Google Doc, put it on the other side, and I can listen through my voice memos, and I can just be typing. And uh, so depending on where I'm at and how I'm feeling, I'll either be using the tech side of it, or I'll say, there's too many. I feel disconnected from this. It's on a screen. I don't know where stuff is. I've got all these verses. I don't see how they fit. And that's when I'll put that away and just pull out the giant piece of paper, and I can just write all over these pages, and you put stuff in a corner, here's 6 chorus ideas. Here's my 12 verses. And I can just be editing all this stuff in one. It's all under my view, and I can be penciling in and out, and it's a creative thing. It feels artistic, and but also lets me see the whole scope of the work in a way that I can't when I'm looking at a screen.
That's exactly what I had Daniel Lanois, the producer, on a few years ago,
Mhm.
and he told me the exact same thing. All of his song, he writes songs also, but all the stuff is on 11 by 22 art paper, and exactly
Mhm.
what you said. And there's thought bubbles, and there's errors, and there's words here, and corners.
Yeah.
There's no linearity to it at all.
Yeah.
It's. But I've always said, as a writer, that we need a process that reflects the chaotic nature of the way we think in a good way.
Yeah.
It's why I always, when I was a professor, I would tell my students, like, the linear outline, the 1AB, 2AB, we were all taught. It's the worst type of outline known to humankind because no one thinks like that.
Mhm.
And what you're doing is, in the songwriting way, is the same way. It's, let me embrace the chaos of that's why they call it brainstorming. So
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the poet, the Irish poet you were talking about, and it's the same. It kind of, it feels like that applies in the same way. Like, I respect or admire people that can do that if it works for them. It's just not for me. Like, I got to throw it all against the wall. I got to be able to see. It's the weird conspiracy theory, like psycho, walls is drawn with all the images and the connecting dots and all the things. Um, and get it all out, and then I can cull it, and then I can cut it down, and then I can say this goes with this trash. This is an idea for another song, and then I can make it smaller and smaller and smaller, and massage it. It's like a sculpture in a way. It's like this is going to be a bad uh uh metaphor, but like uh, I I start with the huge rock being everything, and then I'm chiseling and chipping around, but to get down to where I want to be. And so yeah, having a whiteboard or a giant notebook or something where I can do more than just the lines in a linear order is really helpful to me. It opens up a creative source, and it makes it feel like there's a flow and a magic to it that is fun and exciting, and helps me get my thoughts where I want them to be. Because it's not a song is not just here's some lines. It's everything. It can touch on every emotional part of somebody, and that story is not just Bob went to the store and did this, and then Sally said hi, and it you're getting potentially their history or their point of view or their clothing or the weather or what's going on in the town, or I mean, there's a thousand different things that can be there, and I can't keep that in my mind in one place. So I like to spread it all out, and then I can put my scene together. I can put my language together. I can put my emotional journey together through that. Um, from that pile of stuff, I can put it into my work page, and then I take it over to my computer and I edit it down. And here's my clean draft. But I had to start off really sloppy.
As an aside, it's interesting to listen to songwriters like you that I interviewed 10 plus years ago and listening to the tech that people used back then. I think you would say, I had to go back to the interview. You used something called the master writer. Or,
Master writer. Yep.
yeah.
We've come a long
Uh,
way.
right.
I mean,
All
it's
right.
been huge because I just the one note on this. When I started, it was the toughest thing for me because these ideas would come and I couldn't capture them. I'd be at a bar, I'd be 2 in the morning drunk, I would be whatever, and like I would write something on a napkin, and then the next day it was like I can only not only not read my handwriting, but I have no idea what the melody is. I don't know what any of the other context was, or I would get a melody and I would have to go put it on a tape cassette or one of those little mini recorders, but there was no way to track that or like organize that, and so you had to listen to the whole tape and find the thing. So it's such a blessing to now have these things where you can write something, record something, and then it's just there. You can pull it up at any point. You can find the song, the melody that goes with it. You can find the lyrics that go with the melody, and you can do all these things. It's just been a huge help for me.
I have to remember who it was I interviewed. It may have been Mary Chapin Carpenter, I believe, who said that she would start out and she would call her answering machine.
Oh yeah.
And when she was out, and then she'd go back home and she'd have hours
Uh-huh.
back when they were tapes. And that's what she would do pre
I forgot
iPhones.
about that move. Yeah.
Right. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Um,
Some people are like,
so
"What's an answering machine?"
I know. Uh, okay. So a couple more questions. And one is, the one quote I always give songwriters is Agatha Christie said the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. The idea that ideas come to us when our brains are engaged in unconscious activities. So I've heard things like gardening, mowing the lawn, showering, that the unconscious comes up when our brains are engaged in activities that require no conscious thought, often monotonous activities that require repetitions. So and that can be movement, it can be anything like that, but do you ever find that happens?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think what my version of that would be. So at the table I'm sitting at right now, I have a puzzle, and that's the thing I've gotten into lately. Is it's engaging to me, but I can also think. So it's there's um again, there's a tactile thing, and my brain is engaged, but it's not. in a way that prevents me from being creative or having thoughts or working through things. And so that's an activity that I enjoy um, doing. I take lots of walks. I've got a giant dog, and I was never much of a walker, but now I find that's really great for clearing my head. And a lot of times I listen to podcasts and stuff, but if I just put my headphones in my pocket and just walk, um, that's a huge source of ideas and input come. I guess that's probably the big one for me. But also, I just like to get stoned and sit with my guitar and just record myself. And like, there's no pressure. I'm not thinking about anything other than just having fun with music. And I just record myself for as long as I can stand it. And I find that that's uh, late at night in particular. There's just no part of the day or of my stresses or worries that come into that time. It's just very relaxed for me and open, free.
Let's talk about writers. How much reading are you getting to do nowadays?
How much reading am I getting to do? Uh yeah, a fair bit. Although I'm um trying to think. Uh, it's sort of boring, and but a lot of my stuff is just kind of uh self help or spiritual work, or a lot of Richard Rohr and anything DeMello, and I'm reading again letters to Rilke, letters from a young poet. Um, uh, let's see what else I got in here. Stoic philosophy. Just trying to find things that can give me a little more solid footing in this world. Because if I don't have that, I'm pretty much in trouble. So I'm trying to kind of build my foundation. But for pleasure and leisure, I'm doing a lot more audiobooks and podcasts and stuff these days. I just finished a great uh, book for your listeners, just so think I'm entirely not reading. Broken Country, Claire Leslie Hall, um, was a great book I just finished. Um, Another
It's
one
funny.
that's self help thing is "Don't Believe Everything You Think." Joseph Wynn. That was been really helpful for me.
If you are you the type of reader that has to finish something if you start it, even though you may not like it?
No,
I
no.
used to be
I'm the
like
type
that.
of reader that doesn't finish things even when I do like it.
I think
I-
I have well it's funny because I read all on Kindle. I have my phone here now, and I think the last time we had talked you had mentioned you used to like to read historical nonfiction.
yeah.
And I'm reading an amazing book that just came out called The Mission by Tim Weiner, Weiner, and it's about the history of the CIA from 9/11 to now. Um, and he wrote a book, I guess, before I did not read it, but he wrote a book that was the start of the CIA up until I think not pre 9/11. It's absolutely fascinating book because he had all
Hmm.
this access to people who were able to say things on the record. Um, and it's one of the, it's like it's, I mean, it's a it's nonfiction, but it reads like a thriller. And it is so good. I cannot put it away. It's riveting because you're reading about all, and sadly, most of it is about the institutional failures
Yeah.
but it's a fascinating book.
It's called The Mission.
The Mission, and Tim Weiner, Weiner, and I think he writes in the New York Times. Um, but I can't put it down.
In this digital age, it's so easy to just put on Netflix or put on the news or whatever and just get lost in that, and then 3 hours will be gone. Uh, and I don't feel any the better for it. Whereas a book can charge you in a different way, and there's nothing like getting lost in a great book.
It can I
My jam right now is history podcast. So, and my favorite one is called "The Rest Is History." It's these two British guys. They cover everything in amazing detail. They're super bright. They're also really funny in this dry British way that crack me up. So it's a great combination of really heavy and interesting topics historically, but also they make me laugh 4 or 5 times an episode.
So the one thing I will say about television is some of the TV writing now rivals some of the great writing. I mean, I think it never used to be that way back when there were three networks and you had all that trash TV where it was just you could just
Hmm.
passively. But some of the writing and some of those shows um, is fantastic writing. It's not like it used to be. So I agree with you, but I don't feel like I do try to pick shows that are well written so that when I finish watching them, I don't feel like, wow, my brain has been sucked out of my ears.
Yeah, I don't think it's not a matter of that it's not quality stuff, although there's a lot of trash, but I know there's amazing stuff. For me specifically, the issue is I can get really hooked on the technology and the I got to get off my computer. I got to get off my iPad. I got to get off my phone, and I really struggle with that. And so um, that's where reading a book versus watching a show, even if the show is amazing, it still has me engaged in a certain way that I'm disconnected from myself or my body or my brain is feels overstimulated, and reading a book is just a different experience. Having said that, I still watch a lot more TV than I read books, but I'm trying to balance that out a bit.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.